Welcome back to Unveiling the Shadows, where we like to dive into those stories that make you think twice about turning off the lights.
Yeah, those ones that stick with you.
This time,
Mm.
we're looking at the Sinister Chronicles,
Ooh, I love the Sinister Chronicles.
and specifically their episode called The Bonnie Parker Interview, 1974.
Oh, wow.
So if you don't know, Bonnie and Clyde, infamous outlaw couple, died in a hail of bullets back in 34.
Right, right.
Well, this episode asks, what if that didn't happen?
Interesting.
What if Bonnie survived and 40 years later decided to tell her story?
Hmm.
It's a really cool premise.
It is a good premise.
It really had me hooked right from the beginning.
Yeah, I can see why.
It all starts with this journalist.
Hmm.
He's waiting in a dimly lit room.
Oh,
You can hear a clock ticking in the background.
setting the mood.
Exactly. It's all very, tense. And then this grizzled guy walks in. It looks like some kind of fixer,
Mm-mm.
and he gives the journalist this warning about the woman he's about to meet. He just says, Bonnie. Right. I mean, you immediately know who they're talking about.
Yeah, Bonnie Parker.
But it's like 40 years later. What could she possibly be like?
You have to wonder what she's been doing all this time.
And then she walks in.
Okay.
She's older, obviously. Her face is lined, but her eyes,
Mhm.
her eyes are still sharp. Like they still have this fire in them.
Yeah.
She's wearing this single dress and a trench coat, almost like she's trying to blend in. But there's something about her that just screams, don't mess with me.
I get that.
And the first thing she does is confirm. Yeah, it's me. I'm Bonnie Parker. But then she warns the journalist that the real story is way more messed up than anything anyone could imagine.
That's a bold statement.
Right. I mean, we all think we know Bonnie and Clyde, thanks to Hollywood,
The glamorous outlaws.
Exactly. But this episode is like, nope. Think again.
So how does she explain the ambush? Everyone believes they were gunned down.
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Mm.
She claims that she knew about the ambush beforehand.
Well,
Yeah. And then she made a deal to get out. They even killed a look-alike girl to make it look convincing.
a look-alike. That's crazy. Who would go through all that trouble for her, and why?
Exactly. That's what I was thinking. What made Bonnie Parker so valuable that someone would orchestrate this whole elaborate escape? The episode really makes you think about who is pulling the strings behind the scenes.
It almost feels like a conspiracy.
Mm.
Like there's this whole other level to the story that we never knew about.
Right. And it makes you wonder how much of history is actually just what they want us to believe.
Yeah.
So after the ambush, Bonnie says she didn't exactly find freedom. She was forced to do these jobs for the people who helped her escape.
Jobs, like a kind of jobs.
The episode is a little vague on the details at this point, but she talks about having to take on a new name, a new life. Like she's constantly looking over her shoulder, always afraid of being found out.
I can't even imagine living like that, always in hiding, never able to truly be yourself.
Right. And you can see the toll it took on her. Even 40 years later, she's still haunted by what she had to do.
It makes you think about the price of survival. What would you be willing to do to stay alive?
And would it even be worth it if you had to sacrifice your freedom, your identity, your soul?
Deep questions, man. Deep questions.
And it gets even darker. Because she eventually reveals that those jobs weren't exactly legal. She admits to doing some pretty bad things.
Like what?
Well, she even confesses to killing people.
Wow, that's a far cry from the Bonnie Parker we see in the movies.
Right. It completely shatters that romanticized image of her.
Yeah.
Makes you realize that maybe she wasn't the hero we all thought she was. Or maybe she was, but she was forced into doing things she never would have imagined.
It's like she's trapped in a nightmare that she can't wake up from.
Exactly. And as the interview goes on, it becomes clear that she was more than just a getaway driver or a bank robber.
What do you mean?
Well, she describes herself as a cleaner.
A cleaner.
Yeah, like someone who erases evidence, makes problems disappear.
Yeah.
She was the one they sent to silence anyone who knew too much.
That's chilling. It's like she's a ghost. Someone who officially doesn't exist, but who can make people vanish without a trace.
And that's where things start to get really unsettling.
How so?
Well, think about it. Who were these people who had so much power? Who were they protecting? And what were they willing to do to keep their secrets buried?
That's a good question. The episode never explicitly names them, but it hints at a much larger conspiracy, a network of influence that extends far beyond Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah, and it makes you realize that maybe the real story wasn't about Bonnie and Clyde at all. Maybe they were just pawns in a much bigger game.
It's like we're seeing the tip of the iceberg, and the truth is something far more complex and dangerous than we could have ever imagined.
And just when you think you're starting to understand what's going on, the episode throws another curveball. Because Bonnie reveals that there was one job that she couldn't do.
What do you mean?
They sent her after someone, but she couldn't bring herself to hurt them. And that's when she decided to disappear again, this time on her own terms.
Whoa, that's huge. It's like she finally breaks free from their control. But it also raises a whole new set of questions.
Like, who was this person that Bonnie refused to harm? And why did they mean so much to her? What was their connection? And after decades of silence, why did she choose this moment to come forward with her story?
So many questions.
Exactly. And that's what we'll be diving into in the next part of our deep dive into the Bonnie Parker interview, 1974.
I can't wait. So before we jump back into this whole Bonnie Parker thing, I'm really curious about this person she refused to kill.
Yeah, that part really threw me for a loop, too.
It's such a turning point in the episode, you know? Like for 40 years, she's been doing these horrible things.
Following orders.
Right, but then suddenly she draws a line. She makes a choice. It's almost like we're seeing a glimmer of the old Bonnie, the one who supposedly had this code, this sense of loyalty.
Yeah, but she vanishes again. Gone. Just poof.
Exactly. And this time it's not because someone else is making her disappear. She's choosing to run.
And I can't imagine the stress of that, knowing that these powerful, shadowy figures are probably hunting for her.
It's like something out of a spy movie.
You know? Totally. Yeah. And the episode doesn't shy away from the darkness. She talks about how lonely it was, always looking over her shoulder, never able to stay in one place for too long.
It's a classic case of living a double life. You see it in so many stories. That fear of exposure, the weight of the past, always threatening to catch up with you.
Right. I mean, think about shows like The Americans, always having to maintain this facade, never really knowing who to trust.
It makes you wonder if you can ever truly outrun your past. Or if it's always going to be there, lurking in the shadows.
And after 40 years of running, Bonnie finally decides she's done. She contacts this journalist.
A leap of faith.
Totally. She believes he's the only one who can expose the truth. She hands him this notebook full of names, dates, details.
That's got to be some explosive stuff.
It is, and she knows it. It's like she's giving him a ticking time bomb.
So is she looking for justice? Revenge? What's her endgame here?
Honestly, I have no idea. It's one of the things I love about this episode. It keeps you guessing.
Is she a victim? A manipulator? It's all blurred.
Totally. And the journalist, he's clearly in over his head.
You can see the fear in his eyes. Like he realizes he stumbled into something way bigger than he bargained for.
Right. He thought he was just getting a story. Now he's caught in this web of conspiracy and danger.
And then boom, another twist. Bonnie vanishes. The journalist? He's gone too. All that's left is this tape recording found in a bus station locker.
Seriously, what is happening?
It's the perfect cliffhanger. It leaves you with so many questions. Did the journalist find out too much? Did they get silenced? Or did they go into hiding?
And what about Bonnie? Is she dead?
Yeah.
Is she still out there watching, waiting for the right moment to strike?
It's like the episode is daring you to come up with your own theories, to fill in the blanks. What do you think happened?
Okay, so part of me thinks Bonnie planned this all along. The interview, the notebook, the disappearance. It was all a way to expose the truth. Take down these powerful figures from the shadows.
Interesting theory. It fits with her character. This idea of her being a fighter, someone who refuses to be controlled.
Right. But it also means she was willing to use this journalist, put his life in danger to achieve her goal.
That's the thing about Bonnie. She's complex. She's not just a hero or a villain. She's both.
And that's what makes her so fascinating.
Right. And that's why this whole episode is so compelling. It challenges you to think about the gray areas of morality, the choices people make when they're backed into a corner.
It's a reminder that the world isn't black and white. There are always shades of gray.
And sometimes those gray areas, that's where the most interesting stories lie. You know, it's funny, we talk about Bonnie and Clyde as these legendary figures, but this episode really flips the script. It turns Bonnie into this tragic figure.
Totally. She's not just some gun-toting outlaw anymore. She's a victim.
Yeah.
She's been manipulated and used, forced to do things she never would have imagined.
And it makes you think about how we view history, right? How much of what we believe is true is actually just the story that someone wants us to hear.
Right. Like, who gets to decide which version of history we remember?
And this episode uses all these cool film noir techniques to keep you on edge. The shadowy figures, the dimly lit rooms, the sense of paranoia. It's all very deliberate.
Yeah, it's like you're constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop.
And then that ending, The abandoned tape, the missing journalist. It's brilliant.
It really is. It's like the creators are saying, okay, we've given you the pieces, now you figure it out.
Exactly. It's up to the viewer to decide what they believe.
Yeah.
What really happened? Did Bonnie tell the truth? Did the journalist uncover something he shouldn't have? Or was there something else going on entirely?
It's like a choose-your-own-adventure for your brain.
Right. And that's what makes this episode so much more than just entertainment. It makes you think. It makes you question. It makes you want to talk about it with other people.
And for me, one of the most powerful parts of this episode is the idea that anyone can be a victim, even someone like Bonnie Parker.
Right. It's a reminder that power can corrupt anyone, and that even the people we think are in control can be manipulated by forces beyond their understanding.
So what does it all mean? Is this just a clever piece of fiction? Or is it something more?
I think it's both. It's a well-crafted story, but it also taps into our deepest fears about truth, power, and the hidden forces that shape our lives.
It makes you wonder how much of what we see and hear is real, and how much of it is just a carefully constructed illusion.
Those are questions we may never have definitive answers to.
But maybe that's okay. Maybe the journey is more important than the destination.
Maybe the act of questioning, of searching for the truth, is what really matters.
And sometimes the most unsettling stories, the ones that make us uncomfortable, those are the stories that have the most to teach us.
They force us to confront our own biases, our own beliefs, and they challenge us to see the world in a new way.
And that's what Unveiling the Shadows is all about, right? Exploring those dark corners, asking those tough questions, and hopefully coming out the other side a little bit wiser, a little bit more aware. So until next time, keep exploring those shadows, keep asking those questions, and keep searching for the truth. You never know what you might find.